slowed up and stopped before the crosswalk. Now, the lady behind him was not happy. She wanted to get through that light because, you know, a lot of us think that yellow light means step on it instead of slow down and stop. She was so angry, she dropped her cell phone and her makeup and started cursing at the man in front of her and honking her horn. But while she's cursing and honking that horn, she hears a tap, tap, tap on the glass. She turns, and there's the serious face of a policeman. He rolls down her window. And the officer asked her to step out of her car and put her hands in the air. He takes her down to the station. He fingerprints her. He takes her photograph. He takes all of her personal belongings and puts her in a holding cell. A few hours later, another officer comes and gets her out and takes her to the desk where the arresting officer stood. She is so got by it, she can't say anything. And the arresting officer turns to her and says, "I'm so sorry, but I hope you understand. I saw you honking your horn. I saw you cursing the man in front of you. And at the same time, on your back bumper, you had a bumper sticker that said, 'What would Jesus do?' I also saw that on your license plate holder it said, 'Choose life.' There was another bumper sticker that said, 'Follow me to Sunday school.' And last but not least, you had the Christian fish on the car. So naturally, I thought the car was stolen." Sometimes our actions speak a whole lot louder than our words. Her actions were screaming. Her words were whispered on the back of her bumper. Oftentimes, we show God's love in that way. But today, in the gospel, Jesus gave this commandment: love one another. Not just that love that you have for your parents, or your spouse, or your children, or even for your car, or chocolates. But love one another in the way that I have loved you. And how did Jesus show that love? Yes, he told us to love our neighbor. But he showed us so much more. Jesus showed us many, many more types of love than the parental love, the family love, the love of things and possessions. One of those things he showed us was leprosy love. Leprosy love. When he came down from the Sermon on the Mount, where he gave us the Beatitudes and quite possibly the most well-known sermon of his whole career, he healed a leper. A leper. And you know what they looked like. They had body parts falling off. It was a terrible disease. No one wanted to touch them. They were on the outside, on the fringe of society. And Jesus reached down and touched him and made him well. Are there people in your life that you don't wish to touch, that live on the fringe of your life, that you don't know how to love? Jesus also showed us leftover love, leftovers love. Several times in the Bible we hear and we read where he served thousands of people with minimal food. 2 fish, 5 loaves of bread, 5,000 people fed. Not only fed, but there were leftovers. Jesus always has enough. He always has enough love for everyone. And even leftovers for the ones who got late. Are there people in your life that are starved for that kind of love? Jesus also showed us tough love. We hear a lot about tough love, but by gumbo, this guy lived it. It was a young man, if you remember the story, he comes up and says, Jesus, I follow your commandments. I do what you tell me. I do everything. What more can I do? And Jesus looks at him and says, sell all your possessions, give the money to the poor, and follow me. The young man couldn't do it. He couldn't follow Jesus in that way. That's tough love. Do you have something coming between you and Jesus in your relationship that you just can't seem to give up? That tough love? Jesus also had blind love. Several times in the Bible we read where he cured the blind, he gave them sight. One of those is with Bartimaeus. Bartimaeus is yelling, over here, over here! Help me, help me! Oh, his friends are so embarrassed. Shh, shh. Be quiet. That's Jesus, for Pete's sake. You can't just yell at him. They were embarrassed. Jesus hears and says, come here. And he heals him. And he says, your faith has made you well. That's blind love. Are there people in your life that you're embarrassed to love? Jesus also had unlikely love. The most unlikely character in the Bible is probably Zacchaeus. You know, Zacchaeus was a tiny little guy. He was a tax collector. No one liked him. It wasn't because he was little, that's for sure, but it was because he collected taxes. And you know how he made his living? Is by asking for more than what he was supposed to collect, because that was his. So if he could get more out of you, he made more money. Now, you know, none of us like people coming to our doors and asking for money. No one really liked Zacchaeus. And he was a short little guy. And so when Jesus came by, he went to see him, and he climbed up that tree, and he waited. Unlikely character for Jesus to love. And Jesus gets there and looks up and says, Zacchaeus! Because he didn't think anybody could see him. Come down here and take me to dinner. Are there people in your life that are so unlikely for you to love? You just can't seem to do it. Jesus had a look in the mirror love. Do you remember the woman accused of adultery? And the Pharisees bring her. And they say, Jesus, you know, you said yourself that that's wrong. You know it's right of us to stone her. And they go, right? Because they want him to agree. But Jesus turns to them and says, look in the mirror, people. Nothing wrong with you in that mirror? Then you throw the first stone. He had a look in the mirror kind of love. Knowing that we all are full of fault. Therefore, our love should include everyone without fault and more. He had a look in the mirror kind of love. The last kind of love, because there are many, many more, but it takes two. Oh, you want to stay that long this morning.